Amy's February book review. The first book, The Rosie Project. They say this book is delightful, a page turner, and they couldn't stop laughing, but I don't really relate to that. As I read the book, the main character, Don, is so robotic, and when he socially interacts, he acts in the opposite way of he should. I didn't really find the part that was funny in this book, and I didn't really know why people enjoy reading this so much. The second book is We Dream of Space by Erin Entrada Kelly. I first bought this book in a bookstore, but I bought it when I read over the title. It said, Winner of the Newbery Medal for Hello Universe. Her other books, Hello Universe and Those Kids from Fawn Creek, I already read, and I both enjoyed this book so much that I decided to read this book. The main character, Bird, is one of the protagonists that I love so much. She's like the glue that holds the family together, always thinking positively. She's so hyper, but there are situations when she just crumbles over and her family has to support her. And I loved how this book made the family in this book, they aren't really like a perfect family, and how she described a family like a machine with kinks and cracks and it sometimes just malfunctions. And she also described family is a complicated galaxy. And I can relate to that, how family is a complicated mess. And even though we all love each other, sometimes we just don't understand each other. After I read this book, I kept thinking about how Bird was so into space travel, and how she just knew what she wanted to do. And I've never really been into space travel or space, but after reading this book, I wanted to find more about space because this book describes space as such a fun journey more than I thought it was. And Bird really changed my mind about how I thought about space. The third book is A Healing Season of Pottery. I first read this book because the cover is so beautiful, but as I read the book was too like placid for me. Like the main character, is such an overthinker, and she just thinks everything too much, so she doesn't act. It was frustrating how the story feels like it doesn't move on like physically. There's like not a lot of changes. So for me, it wasn't really of a page turner, but I love the quote at the back. She rubbed the spoiled clay with her fingertips. Like a wound as it heals, the traces faded, and has soon vanished completely as if they'd never been there at all. After I read this book, this describes it's a healing book, it's a calm book, and it describes pottery as a way of healing your heart. And after I read this book, I really wanted to try out pottery, try the pottery wheel that is described, and how fun it was in this book. The last three books I read are a series, and it's the famous Hunger Games series. I first read these books because it was for a homework, but I wasn't really like happy to read this book. I thought The Hunger Games was like a dystopian novel that is really violent and is not a page turner. I knew that a lot of people liked it, but I didn't really think that it was my kind of book. And then I read the first book of The Hunger Games, and I was just like, oh my god, this is just my book. It was such a page turner, and even if I skip all the violent moments, the story is so well written that after I read this book, felt like I could reread it again and again. I can experience the moments over and over, and I will feel like it's all brand new to me. And how this book described in Candace's position, it felt like I was really in the arena with the tributes and trying to survive. And after I read this book, I knew I had to read the other books, Catching Fire and Mockingjay. But I was so excited to read this book books that I didn't stop reading. I just kept on reading and reading until I finished these three books. But after that, I kind of regret it. I think Hunger Games is a book you should read like gradually, little by little, so you can savor the moment. And if you read everything, it like me, like just at one point, after you finish the series, you kind of feel like empty. Like in your perspective, the story isn't really finished if you read it like me. And I really didn't really like the ending. The ending is the last book is Mockingjay, and how just Katniss kills Snow, then she kills Coin, then all her friends die, and even her little sister dies, and she's apart from her family, her friends, and she just lives alone with her cat and PETA. And I didn't really like that ending. It's not a happy ending. I think it was supposed to be a happy ending because like she lived and it's now all settled, but like how she killed Snow, I think it wasn't really like a clean shot, that she wasn't really happy about it. And how his stories ended, how she's just living alone, didn't really set well in my mind. And it ends with Katniss looking at her children, one blonde hair and gray eyed, one black haired and blue eyed, and I just didn't really like that scene. I wanted the last scene to be like a reunion with all her friends, and then she could go on to her normal, happy life. I know that was really like a far stretch, but still, I really wanted it. And the first book, I felt really fun while reading it, but the second and third books, it was too violent and too complicated how the districts were all fighting. And after I read this book, I don't really know if I want to watch the movie anymore. Because when I read the first book, I thought I really wanted to see the arena and everything. But after these, the two and three, it feels too like bloodied, and I don't really want to see all the violence. And the fourth book of the series is about Cornelius Snow, the evil president in the story when he's young. I'm still reading it, but I kind of start to understand the perspective of Snow. As I read these three books, I only saw him as an antagonist, and I'm sure the other readers did too, but only as a simple antagonist looking for power. But when we read the fourth book of the series, we really look inside Snow's perspective and how he turned into the evil master he is. These six books of my February book list, I guess I enjoyed some and I didn't enjoy some, but I think I learned a lot from each of them. Thank you for watching.